Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday from Arnie's. Happy birthday to you.
This is Alan Karpik with our Arnie's Birthday Zoom with Tim Spiker. And Tim played for the Boilermakers 1991, 92, 92, 93. Yep. A walk-on, but watches the Purdue program closely. Transferred to WashU, and after that, and had an opportunity to do some pretty exciting things in his career. We'll talk about that, but we're also going to talk about that little basketball game Purdue has on Friday night at 7:00, because we're all intensely interested in that. First of all, you're a young 50. I say that to everybody that's 12 years younger than me, but this is a big day. It's a milestone birthday for you, but happy birthday to you.
Thank you, Alan. Really appreciate it.
Tell me a little bit about, we always ask the question about family traditions. Your dad and you and I have a little bit of a connection because I did graduate school in Morgantown. You grew up in Morgantown, where your dad was, I believe, the team physician for the Mountaineers for years, right? Tell me about what that was like growing up, and what birthdays were like for you on March the 23rd when it came around each year. What happened in the Spiker family for you?
Yeah, well, growing up around an athletic department, I mean, I grew up at the football stadium. I fell into a whirlpool when I was 6 years old and had to be fished out. So the whole college athletics thing was just a part of my life growing up, ingrained. It was involved in everything. And the idea that people went to a job at 8 o'clock and came home at 5, that was a completely foreign concept in our house, because medical staff is there, first one, last ones to leave, all of that. But our tradition growing up was, I have an older sister and a younger brother, and our tradition that on your birthday, you got to pick where we were going to go out to eat. And we didn't go out to eat very much. My mom was a wonderful cook, and normally it was a family around the dinner table. But on that night, when I got to pick, I went all out. I wasn't holding back. I always picked Long John Silver's. So that's, so that's, high end.
In Morgantown, I assume. I don't even know I'm trying to think of where the Long John Silver's was in Morgantown.
It's not there anymore. It used to be there, but it's not there anymore.
Yeah. So growing up, because West Virginia fans, you are introduced to Purdue fans are rabid. We get that, but it's a kind of a different level there. I was in graduate school in 83, 84, and they beat Pitt and carried the goalposts down. They've down there, burned the town down, Sunnyside and everything else. I've never been around, and I've been around, Ohio State in the Big Ten and others that are crazy fans, but that had to have been an interesting experience growing up in that environment, and really taught you to be big into college sports, I assume. I mean,
it wasn't just my dad's job, because college sports can be such an all-consuming, may not be the right word, but it's certainly not a standard hours kind of a job. And so, as much as it was my father's job, it was my mother who also enabled that in every way, because of how supportive she was of my father and all of the crazy thing that requires a mom to be able to put up with from a timing standpoint. So it was totally a family affair with my mom, my sister, and my brother. And we just got a chance, felt very blessed to be involved in all of that. And of course, there are no pro sports teams in West Virginia. So West Virginia, and football in particular, that my dad was most involved with, that was the primary thing. So I felt very special, to where my friends were watching from afar, but in all likelihood, I'm hanging around practice around the stadium, and I probably, in many ways, know the guy that they're talking about on the football field because of my dad's job. So it definitely gave us all a love for college sports. My brother is a head basketball coach today. That's his job at Drexel University, and so it's definitely continued on in our family.
And that's just a few blocks from where Purdue's going to be playing.
That's right.
On Saturday, right next to UPenn. Great campus down there. I've been there a couple of times. I have a daughter that lives in Philly, and a great spot. Yeah. So you were 11 years old when I was down there in graduate school, but I'll never forget when West Virginia beat Pitt. And they had bad words they said about Pitt.
There is a bad word that rhymes with Pitt that is
and I loved it. I worked in the ticket office and I had to answer the phone. I don't think we got to answer that phone that way, but we had another way of phrasing it. But Jeff Hostetler, Don Nealon, great guys. I worked with Jeff's wife, Vicky, there, but just a great place to, and worked under Fred Schaus.
Oh, wow. Great Purdue connection there. Yeah.
Great place to learn about big time college athletics is Morgantown.
I'll tell you a really short story about Jeff Hostetler. I was in high school after Jeff had moved on and had his pro career, obviously a lot of success, and kind of came into that role, ended up winning a Super Bowl with the Giants.
Yeah, unbelievable.
The summer after that, again, fortunate because of my dad's job, I was doing my summer workouts over at the football stadium. So I was blessed to have access to that because of my dad. And in pulls this car to the complex. I'm just in there working out by myself, and it's Hostetler. And he says to me, and we mildly knew each other just because I was hanging around. He says, "Hey, can you catch a few balls for me?" And I'm like, so I'm 17 years old, and we walk out into the stadium. He's getting ready to go to the quarterback competition in Hawaii, and he wants to throw some balls in. So here I am. I'm in West Virginia's football stadium, Mountaineer Field, by myself, the Super Bowl winning quarterback catching passes. And I'm like, does anybody have a camera around here? Anyway, it was just the two of us for about a half an hour, just myself and Jeff Hostetler. So fun little memory.
Yeah, and he was a pretty good guy, as I remember.
Very good guy. And, absolutely.
As I said, I got to work.
Great guy.
They weren't married yet at the time, but with his wife as well. All right, now tell us the story about how you got to Purdue, because you obviously came in as a walk-on, Gene Keady and company. Tell me how that all came to pass. Was it a Denny Miller connection? I don't know what it was. Of course, Denny Miller being Purdue's former athletic trainer and director of sports medicine, that would have known your dad as well.
Yeah. Well, Denny and my dad, they went to school together. They went to PT school together. That's how they knew each other. And that probably at a certain level put Purdue on the radar for me to be interested in. But the bottom line of it was basketball and engineering. I studied electrical engineering. And when you start to think about who has a great basketball tradition and who has a great engineering school, that's not a super long list of schools. And so I became enamored. I came out like with the basketball camp. One summer I came out because the Millers and the Spikers were friends, but you're not going to be on the team because of that. So ultimately I went to prep school for a year after high school to try to get bigger and stronger and just improve my game. And I went to Brewster Academy, which is they have an incredible program now. Guys like Donovan Mitchell went to Brewster. Guys are a lot better, but we had a decent team, and we had the perfect situation for me because we had a good team and no point guard. Yeah. And what that meant is that I got to get my tail kicked for a year going up against players that were much better than I was. And I don't think I ever would have made the team at Purdue if I hadn't had that year at Brewster. So we sent tape and asked Coach Bruce Weber to take a look at it. And he said, "Hey, if you want to come out during the summer and play some pickup, coming out, you can work at camp, but I can't promise you anything." Yeah. And so at that point, you kind of have to, okay, I'm going to roll the dice. And I think my thought at the time was, if it doesn't work out, I've got to play basketball, which is I expected my reality, then I could always find another opportunity at a lower level. But I wanted to know, could I make it at the Big Ten level? Could I make a Division I team? And because of I came in and played during the summer, that went pretty well. Then during the fall, I didn't have that normal walk-ons, show up for a day and try out kind of a thing. I probably wouldn't have made the team if that had been the case, because my game didn't stand out from a athleticism standpoint. But because of the communication ahead of time, I got to play alongside with the team, just normal pickup so I essentially had a tryout that was about a month and a half long, and eventually made the team. So I was very, very thankful for that opportunity, and still thankful for that today.
Yeah, interesting. Now, Purdue has a history with Brewster Academy too. I think some other. I'm trying to think who. I'm drawing.
I'm totally blanking, but I know there is.
I think maybe Brad Miller went there for a year. I'm not 100% sure, but or maybe Cuonzo also. Cuonzo Martin.
I played against Cuonzo in prep.
Okay,
I played against. How about this? First of all, I'm gonna show what a bad basketball guy. I'm talking to my head coach at Brewster, Dave Bolduck, and we're looking at the two forwards from the other team, and we're talking about where they're going to school.
Okay.
And I didn't know Zoe at the time, obviously, but Zoe, you may recall, he had a bad wheel coming into Purdue, and the athletic training staff did a great job along with the doctors and got him healthier. But it was obvious that he had a little bit of an issue even then. And so he's going to Purdue. And I remember talking to my head coach, is like, I don't know how that's gonna work out for him. I looked at the other forward and I said, it's really odd to me where he's headed. And I don't think that's going to work out great either. The other forward was Lawrence Moten, who went to Syracuse.
Yeah.
So you can see what a great analyst I am of basketball talent. I didn't think Cuonzo Martin was going to have a great career, which he obviously did at Purdue. And Lawrence Moten, he may still be the leading scorer in the history of the Big East Conference. Yeah. So probably my skills at analyzing individual talent could be questioned for sure.
All right. Well, we're going to get you into a little bit of St. Peter's analysis but I want to ask you about the guy that you played with in the backcourt, and Matt Painter, and what kind of guy he was, and why. Just from watching him in those 2 years, and you were there in the 92 and 93 seasons in West Lafayette. That would have been Matt's junior and senior years, I believe. But how that was, what the relationship was like, and did you see what he's become as a head basketball coach? Did you see the seeds of that being sown back in those days?
I mean, the seeds were absolutely no question there. Matt had more respect from the coaching staff when it came to X's and O's. It was just so apparent how incredibly savvy and smart Matt was. We were at Illinois my sophomore year. We did not win the game. We lost in double overtime, but right at the end of either regulation or the first overtime, we had the ball and we had a special call for a play that entered the ball into the corner. And Coach Keady started to go over the play, and Matt Painter interrupted him in the huddle. Matt Painter said, well, I won't tell you exactly what he said, but he said, don't run that play. Because Matt thought if we entered into the corner that Illinois was going to trap us and we weren't going to get a shot. So what do you think? I mean, people have all these perceptions about Coach Keady. They see the scowl and they see the competitiveness. What do you think he did? This Hall of Fame Division I coach, he changed the play.
Yeah. He
ran a different play. Now, it would be a wonderful story if we'd made a bucket and won the game. Unfortunately, we missed. We went to the next overtime and we lost. And certainly, you can't have that as a regular part of your program.
Yeah.
Where you can't have the inmates running the asylum. But that's how respected Matt was, that he was able to say, hey, I think there's a better choice. And we changed the play. Matt is pretty brilliant when it comes to X's and O's. And obviously, just look at what's on the team now, what he's had in other years. He's obviously a great recruiter as well, which you have to be. You're probably not going to win Big Ten championships with a roster full of guys like me. So you're going to have to recruit way above that. And obviously you put that talent with his basketball intellect. And I could not be more proud to continue to call Purdue as a part of my past, and to see Matt doing that, and the continuity at a Division I program of this caliber between Gene Keady and Matt Painter is just so special. And I think it has a lot to do with what Purdue basketball is.
Yeah, I want to get into, because your day job is leadership at the Aperio Group, and talk about culture, because I think that's what Matt Painter has done more than anything at Purdue. It's just the culture is so strong that even if things don't, things have already worked out this year, but if they don't work out to a national championship level, there'll be other days because of the culture he's built. Great. All right. Now, he also played with a pretty good player like Glenn Robinson for a year. And I know you taught him everything he knows, and you only got to play 1 year, and but tell me about that experience and watching a guy, your first year, Glenn was not eligible. The second year he was.
I think he was playing.
But what was that like?
He played intramurals his freshman year, if you can even imagine that.
Yeah.
That's just, with Glenn, you knew that you were in the presence of something ridiculous. Yeah. You couldn't be in practice with Glenn and not understand that this person was at a different level than everybody else. I finished up my last 2 years at a Division III school, Washington University in St. Louis, and Glenn is a part of that story in a very odd way, because in my first few weeks at WashU, as I'm playing pickup, I'm terrible. And I'm like, maybe like I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself because I transferred from Purdue, and I'm trying to figure it out. And I'm like, balls are sailing out of bounds. And what is your problem, Tim? Is the conversation I'm having with myself. And then I realized that before I was throwing the ball to Glenn Robinson, who would catch any pass that I would throw and turn it into a basket. And then I had the very sobering and humbling realization that I wasn't nearly as good as I thought I was, because who was on the other end of these passes that I was throwing. But I mean, Glenn was not only a great talent, but I will tell you, he was a great teammate. Yeah. Remember the year after we won first Big Ten championship? That would have been, or not first, but right after I left, we won a Big Ten championship. And that was the year that we played Duke in the Elite Eight. And leading up to that game, there was a reporter that asked Glenn about carrying the team on his back and this kind of one-man show kind of thing. And his response to that reporter was not unlike his attitude on the team. It mirrored it perfectly. He said, he didn't say it this way, but he said, "That's a stupid question. I'm not answering your question. That's offensive. That's not how this team works." That's to have the number one pick in the NBA draft, have that attitude towards his teammates. And yes, there were great players there. We mentioned Cuonzo, Matt Waddell. You can go down the list. There were a lot of really good players, but that was the stance that Glenn took. And a lot of folks with his level of talent don't take that attitude. So I would call him not only a great player, but he was a great teammate as well.
Yeah, well said. All right, tell me about, you watched Purdue basketball and watch them closely, and you can analyze what you see. What do you like about this team? Maybe what's something that maybe isn't talked about that you really like about this team, or as you look to Purdue heading to Friday night's showdown with St. Peter's?
One of my favorite things about this team that I have seen, there's been a couple of moments where it wasn't true, but for the most part, it has been evident. And that is to have somebody of Jaden Ivey's talent level, but to resist the desire to stand around and watch him play. I think, the first half on the first half against Texas was an amazing display of Jaden not forcing things, letting things come to him to get to halftime. Now, I heard what Candace Parker said on TV about she'd rather her star player be 0 for 8 or 0 for 9. I think that's utter garbage. And I think Candace is obviously a great player and knows the game. But, Jaden not forcing bad shots and kicking it out to Ethan in the corner who's hitting the three, making things happen, letting the game come to him. But it's not just Jaden, it's the rest of the team, because with a very few number of exceptions, and I think the end of the Indiana game in Bloomington being one of them, this team continues to play team basketball even when it's crunch time. And sometimes the best thing to do is give the ball to Jaden. He's going to go downhill and people are going to move into spots. But it's not just Jaden. They continue to play as a team. And I think that is a tremendous quality that gets you deep into March, to not just be, Jaden is an unbelievable player. Obviously, everybody sees that, but they continue to play as a team. And I think that that's one of their greatest qualities.
All right, you've watched St. Peter's in games 1 and 2, and what a great story. They go and beat Kentucky. It's just still shocking to me. And then really boat raced Murray. I shouldn't say that. That game was close down the stretch. But this is a very dangerous, in my view, because I'm now kind of getting up to speed. I watched a little bit of their games, but now analyzing them, this is a dangerous outfit. Very well coached. They're, as their coach said, I think in their post game of game 2, they said, "Who are we afraid? What heck? We live in Jersey City, New Jersey, and half of our guys are from New York. We're not afraid of anything." Tell me what you see from them. And they run also interesting sets. They can be tough to defend. But tell us what you see from the Peacocks.
I think that they are very rare in the Cinderella space, because as I was watching them against Kentucky, if you had stripped the names off of the jerseys and said, who is the lesser team? Who would you rather play in the next round? I would have rather played Kentucky. And the reason why is that the thing that's unique about them as a Cinderella is they just keep running their stuff. Yeah. They're so fundamentally sound. Oftentimes when a team is making a run, it can be very much one person dependent, or a couple of people and some great shooters, or they just for 40 minutes, they hit really tough shots. St. Peter's gets good shots. They get good open shots, or they get shots going to the basket with their back doors. And so I think they're very unique because they're on the brightest lights, biggest stage, and they're just doing what they do. It's very obvious. They continue to run their stuff regardless of the circumstance. And I think that's really impressive, especially as a 15 seed. And then you listen to Shaheen Holloway.
Yeah.
Talk after they interview him after the game, and he's amazing. You could just sense that his calm demeanor and his perspective on the game is what you see on the court. And so I agree with you. Like, they are an extremely dangerous team. And at this point, I think forget about the seeds. Forget about the seeds. These are the 16 teams that are still playing. And if they're here, they can beat you. And you can extend that into the rest of the bracket, because I don't care that North Carolina has an 8 next to their name. Forget about that.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Forget about that. So I've been, if St. Peter's was playing anybody else, I'd be cheering for St. Peter's, but we are going to be in the group of people that are in the small minority on Friday, where we want the Boilermakers to put an end to that Cinderella run, but they are very impressive.
Yeah, it is. And it's one thing that's interesting because Florida Gulf Coast and Oral Roberts, I thought that they had gotten beaten badly in their Sweet 16 game. Not true. Florida Gulf Coast lost by 12, and Oral Roberts only lost by a bucket last year to Arizona. To Arkansas. This, I know that means nothing for this one, but I expect a battle. I'm not a gambler, so I'll say that, but the 12.5 points seems like a lot in this one, because they look the part.
I agree.
I agree. I think your analysis of stripping the uniforms, they don't have the size inside, maybe not, but they are athletic and will cause Purdue some problems.
They'll have to figure out the size thing. Of course, we've got 2 great big guys and some other size in there to deal with as well, but they also had to deal with Toshibwe from Kentucky, and Kentucky's at home now, so we'll have to be ready to play for sure.
Yeah, there weren't many guys better than Oscar this year in terms
of
goodness, how he played, and
what a year.
He's gonna make a lot of money at the next level. All right. Yes, I love one of my favorite things, as I said, this is my favorite part of my job, is to be able to connect with people like you that have gone on to do interesting things. Now, you have that engineering degree, but you're in the world of leadership. Tell me about it at the Aperio Group. Tell me a little bit about that, how that evolved, and why that kind of became important to you as your career developed.
Yeah, I got a chance to be, I do have an engineering degree. That is true. I tell everybody the world is a safer place because I'm not a practicing engineer.
Okay.
But the reality is, for me, is that as I went into graduate school, went into business, what I'm able to do is I'm able to apply the logical problem solving skills of engineering that I learned through my engineering education to the world of people and people development. Yeah. And that's really how I wouldn't change a thing about my education. If I had it to do over again, I would do engineering again, even though I don't work as an engineer today, because of the problem solving that it provided me. But I had an opportunity to, I was invited, I was waiting tables, getting ready to start grad school. And I was invited by a fellow server to an open house for a marketing company. And I thought that would be interesting. And I thought there would also be some free food, which was very important at the time.
Yeah.
And I went to this open house and found out within about 3 minutes of what I had actually been invited to. Yeah. It was actually a recruiting meeting for a pyramid scheme, a multi-level marketing company. I'm like, oh, open house for a marketing company. And I don't have anything against those types of organizations, but I had no desire to sell water purifiers to my family and friends. And so I was waiting for the break so that I could leave without making a scene. Yeah. But they started talking about, what does it mean to be an employee? And Alan, I'm telling you, dark cloud of doom and gloom entered the room. There was weeping and gnashing of teeth. It was awful. And in that moment, like in a moment, I just started thinking about, if we led the way that we're able to lead, being employee would not be a terrible thing. In fact, it would be the opposite. Yeah. And so that night, literally in a moment, sent me on a quest to learn everything that I could about leadership. And I just started interviewing everybody that I could. Then I got involved with leadership consulting, got involved with some research, and that has not stopped to this day. So that's how my passion around leadership was born.
And the website is the Aperio, Aperio, correct?
That is correct, but I can make it easier.
Okay.
Either timspiker.com will take you there as well.
Okay.
Or be worth following. Be worth following.
I like that. I like that term, because I think that is the essence of leadership. Be worth following, and be somebody that leadership also is not always definitely not always having all the answers. No. It's being worth following, and being gracious, being being able to serve, being able to do all those things.
I mean, 100%. I mean, since we're blackandgold.com here, I have to say that just last week we have a podcast, Be Worth Following, and Coach Keady was a guest on there. Yeah. So I definitely encourage the Purdue faithful. Not that anybody needs any more evidence to love Gene Keady, but when you listen to this, you will be reinforced with your positive thoughts.
We got a great response on our site when we put it on our
site.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for putting that up. And I'm just, it was such a great pleasure and honor for me to visit with Coach Keady. So thank you for sharing it with everybody.
Yeah, I think that's it. So last question, and I asked this of folks, and this is a milestone birthday today, so it's a special day when you turn 50. And what makes you optimistic about our future? I mean, as a country, as a world, you're obviously in a field where you talk to a lot of people, have to deal with a lot of people. But it's the old Larry King Live question. We always ask it: what makes you optimistic about where we're going to be as a society down the road? For your kids, you have 4 children.
Yeah, 4. Oldest one is 12. Yep.
Yeah. So this is an important answer. So I'm hanging on every word, my friend.
Oh, well, thanks. I think there's a lot to be caught up in, and I will admit sometimes I get caught up in it in terms of global messages. Obviously, the political atmosphere that we have in the country right now feels pretty heated. Yes. And it's easy to get kind of into that and feel some sense of hopelessness. But I think hope lives in a couple of places. One of them is that if we were to turn off all the devices and just engage with people, I think we would find that, that old adage about we have a lot more in common than we have differences. I think if I just thought about how can I be a great leader as a servant to others, as somebody who cares for others, and who engages with people on an individual basis, if we took away all the headlines that are frankly intended to rile us up, if we took away all of that and just engaged as human beings with one another, I think we always have that available to us. Yeah. We don't have to get caught up. We can say, hey, who's the person I'm interacting with at Starbucks today? Yeah. What is it that I could do for my kid or for my wife today? And so in that, every day has hope, in my opinion. And I'll say that, from a personal standpoint, for me, I have to admit, like, I'm a follower of Jesus. So that gives me incredible hope that as the world, if it ever falls apart, I feel very secure in following that example. So those are the 2 things for me that provide hope. What we can do individually every day, forget about the headlines. And then my faith provides a lot of hope for me as well.
All right. Well said. All right. Now the last and not more important, but an important question. So what makes you optimistic about Purdue getting to the Final Four?
I mean, I just said a second ago, don't pay attention to the seeding numbers that are left. So I can't go back on this, but I'm hard pressed to think of a team that has had more talent across the board than this team. Yeah. I know Sasha's been struggling a little bit, but here's what's true about Sasha. I'll just throw this out there. Yeah. Even though he's had trouble recently, every other team is still scared of Sasha.
Oh yeah.
Every other team said they're not going to take one more step in the lane because they're afraid that if Sasha hits 1, he's going to hit 5. Yeah. And so Sasha still creates space, even when he's not shooting his best. And so you just look down. I have to say, I know this is probably a little longer answer than we wanted, but I have to say this. I hope everybody understands. I know Travion was amazing against Texas in so many different ways. Ethan Morton was unbelievable in that game because Carr was torching us.
Yeah.
And Ethan said, you know what? I'm going to sit on your right hand and you're not going right anymore. And let's see if you can play on the left side of the court. And that changed defensively, that changed things. And of course, yes, he hit a couple of open threes. That's never bad. But the reason I bring up Ethan as you ask this question is, Ethan has played the role that he's played all year. And then you get in the NCAA tournament in a second round game. Who is one of the most important players in that game? It was Ethan Morton. And so, and the next game, it might be Brandon Newman, like it was in the Big Ten tournament. Yeah. There's so many guys that can make contributions on this team. So I know the guy who's calling the plays, and he's one of the most unbelievable X and O people I've ever been around.
Yeah.
He's created a culture where this much talent is so team focused. And obviously everybody knows what Travion said before the season to point that out. And that's continued. And then you add talent on top of those two things. Like, I get goosebumps thinking about it, because we have an incredible opportunity. St. Peter's, UCLA, North Carolina, these are all great teams that we're gonna have to figure out how to deal with. But I'm optimistic because of who's running things, the culture of the program, and the amazing talent that we have. Those are three pretty great things to be excited about.
All right. Well, Tim, I appreciate all your time. What a great interview, your optimism, but also your engineering thinking mind and leadership qualities. All, I think, give you a heck of a lot of credibility, and we'll hold you to it. So
okay.
And most of all, I know that there will not be Long John Silver's tonight, but there will be something special.
You're right. You're right.
In the Atlanta area for you and your family. We wish you the best, and I hope whether you're watching on TV, I don't know whether would you have an opportunity to go to New Orleans if they get there?
Probably won't have the opportunity to go.
That's all right. You can. It would be able to watch one shining moment and have. Purdue be the star of that would be.
That would be
a dream
amazing.
Come true from a lot of folks. So
yes,
have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for your time, and we'll be watching. And then your analysis is spot on. It's going to be a fun part of the next 72 hours of getting ready for that game on Friday night. And hopefully, if you're a Purdue fan, it will be Sunday as well against a storied program in either UCLA or North Carolina.
That's right. Hey, Alan, thanks for having me. Ever grateful, ever true.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks to Arni's for sponsoring, and we'll look forward to getting this posted and sharing this with everybody we can. Have a great birthday.
Thanks.